What does it take to disrupt a male-dominated industry as a young female founder?
Bored of the high fees and barriers to investing, Michelle Pearce-Burke set out on a mission to make investing accessible for everyone.
As the co-founder of Wealthify, we hear how Michelle quit medical school for finance, why starting a company young was the best thing she could do, and why the most important thing that you can do for your financial future is just start.
Michelle, we are so thrilled to have you on the podcast. And we're really excited to talk about your journey because it's a very inspiring one. And I'd love to start at the beginning because you originally went to study medicine, but you didn't finish your degree. Can you talk us through what happened?
Yeah, of course. And thanks for having me on the show today. So yeah, I set off in my career and I really did not know where to start. So like many young people, I think when you leave school and, you've had a very defined path set before and you're kind of like, what do I do next? And I'd always got quite good grades. And I looked at the options and I was like, well, I want to do something vocational because I don't know what I would do with kind of just a degree in a single subject. I knew quite a lot of medics and I had some history of medicine in my family where my father was a doctor, for example. So I thought that seems like a good path to follow. So I ended up going to Edinburgh and I started there. And I think during my time there, I loved university, but I never enjoyed the degree. And it's one of those things that you don't really know until you do it, but sitting in a hospital made me realize that I was actually really squeamish and I just didn't like that kind of vibe, which wasn't a great start.
No.
And then I think I had the really defining moment when I was on the bus one day with a couple of colleagues and they were all talking about some eye diseases and how they'd been reading this article about it and they were fascinated by some of the kind of aspects of it. And I just remember just sitting to myself thinking, I am never going to be interested in eye diseases. I am never going to want to do this in my spare time. So I decided to leave after 3 years with a medical sciences degree and pursue a career in finance.
So, that sounds like quite a big jump. So how on earth did you go from that interest in medicine, thinking you were going to be a doctor, to deciding to pursue finance? When did you start with that interest in financial services?
So I came from a really young age. So actually, yeah, when I was a kid, to be honest, I didn't know anyone in financial services. I didn't have any kind of background of that in my life, but I used to play a game called Neopets, which still exists today. I don't know have you guys heard of it?
Yeah, I used to play Neopets, but I don't think I was doing anything particularly entrepreneurial or ambitious on there. I think I was dressing up those Neopets.
I have some awareness that Neopets existed, but I don't think I was a Pokemon girl, so I don't think I know about Neopets.
So it very briefly, what it is it's a website where you go and you make this little virtual animal. And then the idea is you get points for it. And then with the points, you can go and buy clothes and food and items for your virtual pet.
Yeah.
But one of the ways you could get Neo points was by playing on this stock market. So they had this virtual simulated stock market. So I used to go on there and I used to buy these imaginary stocks. And I made so much money. And I was one of the richest people on the website for quite a long time. Yeah. And I think it sounds like a bizarre thing, but it really triggered my brain into realizing that actually stock markets were fun. It kind of gave me that grounding as to how they would work. And I remember thinking to myself, I want to do this in the real world and then I'll never have to go to school again. And I'm never going to have a job. I'm just going to become super wealthy. So I asked my parents actually then to help off the back of that virtual success. I said, can you help me buy a real stock? I want to be a real investor. So when I was kind of in I think it was 11, 12 years old, I actually ended up buying my first stock with the help of my parents.
Wow.
Which got me into that. Didn't do very well. I lost pretty much all my money, all the pennies
I'd love to know, what was their reaction to that? When you were 11, 12, asking if you could, have some money to invest in a stock, what was their reaction?
They were really supportive of it. I think they themselves didn't really know much about investing or the stock market, so it's kind of a bit of a journey, one of those things that you can do together. So that kind of got me first interested in it. I think that's kind of why I came back to it later. So when I was not enjoying medicine and I was thinking about other things, that kind of thought about being a stockbroker and getting back into the financial markets, like that really appealed to me. And then I just happened to find the kind of perfect trainee job as a stockbroker, which I applied for, got, and yeah, rest was history.
So you left medical school, you went and started work as a stockbroker. What was your experience like there? Did you quickly realize that that is the world that you did want to be in? Or what really was it that led you to think, okay, actually, I'm going to do things a bit differently here?
I was disappointed again, because I had such high expectations about what that world would be like. I was like, yes, I'm going to go and I'm going to help people with their money. And I kind of see that, and I still see it today, as like a really key pillar of your health in this world. You know, people talk a lot about mental health and physical health, but actually having good financial health is super important and kind of underpins a lot of those. And I just found that the investment world, as I saw it with very fresh eyes, was just very old school. The fees were high. The clients were all the sort of super wealthy. And it wasn't really, there was a lot of smoke and mirrors and a lot of jargon where there didn't need to be. And I just saw this huge opportunity to actually simplify a lot of what the traditional world was offering and bring it to more people, and bring it to people like me at the time who had a little bit of money to invest, but I didn't have a lot of money in the bank, and I just needed someone to help me get started in a sensible way where I wasn't just having to pick stocks myself. So I co-founded Wealthify in 2014, and the premise was really to make an investment service that was super easy, simple. You could get going with just £1, wasn't going to cost you the earth, and that people would manage that money for you. And that's kind of still what we do today. It's the concept of give us your money and we'll invest it, make those difficult decisions for you, and look after it on an ongoing basis to really try and get the best return for you.
I really relate personally to what you're saying, because I spent the earlier part of my career working in the wealth management industry and kind of big wealth management companies, and had the exact same feeling. And that's a few years later, that it's still, that culture still exists. It's still around. And I'm really interested to know when you were, because what you're saying, even for me, I had the exact same feeling. This could be simpler. We should be serving more than just the rich. It can be cheaper. It can be more accessible. But that was a very unpopular, in the big wealth management firms, that was very unpopular. And if I was sort of saying that, it was quickly silenced. I was quickly, told to be quiet. How did you find this? Because it sounds like when it was you must have been really going against the grain. How was that? Did you find it easy to get support? And how did you kind of find your co-founder and get a team on board with this idea, which I imagine at the time was quite, a real change?
Yeah, and it was difficult to get going. Originally, I tried to set it up myself, so just sort of without my co-founders, but then I kind of stumbled upon them in the process of doing so. I found one of them, and then he connected me to the third, so actually three of us that founded it together. And doing that was the best decision I made, because I think if I had have just been plugging away at it by myself without any kind of business experience or entrepreneurial experience prior to that, I just think it would have been extremely difficult. And kind of drawing on some of the expertise of the founding team really kind of helped us all get to the successful position we ended up in. And it ended up as like a really good combination of skills, because I think I brought the investment experience, the kind of energy, the youth, the dynamism, and some of the ideas, whereas the other co-founders, they were a bit more seasoned, so they had a lot of the other skill sets I was missing, like connections, expertise in building businesses and kind of knowing how you should go about it, and particularly the funding as well, because that was essential to Wealthify's success, was to get some early funding and kind of keep the money in the bank, as it were, because there's other companies that was since established that were similar to Wealthify, but they struggled on that front and have kind of not managed to succeed largely because of that.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's so interesting is, like you say, your dynamism when you started it, and that almost, I guess, youthful naivety in some ways that maybe you have when you're young and you decide to go out and start a business. But is there anything particular that gave you that confidence to just give it a go? Have you always been like that? And did you ever see yourself as a business founder when you were younger, or was that something that kind of came later?
I don't think I ever thought that I would be an entrepreneur or have that kind of career, but it's one of those things that when you've done it, you kind of reflect back and you're like, actually, I was quite entrepreneurial when I was young. Like, I did quite a lot of initiatives in my sort of school age, and even like at primary school, where I'd run charity things or set up events that were kind of largely charity orientated. So I didn't intend to go about it in that way, but it just kind of happened, I suppose. And I think naivety is a good point, because I think I was naive in the beginning, and I do think that people use that word very negatively, but actually you need a bit of that when you start a business, because if you could see the whole road and see all the pitfalls, then I think a lot of businesses that exist today wouldn't have been set up.
Yeah, absolutely. We've spoken to a few founders who now everyone looks at them and thinks like, wow, this is amazing. And it's the same with Wealthify. Like, it's a huge company now, but actually all of those bumps in the road that you can't foresee at the start are kind of, I guess, what you have to go through to get to where you are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you learn a lot along the way, definitely.
One thing I'm really interested to know is, I mean, you've said it and I found it very frustrating that traditionally the wealth management industry didn't served a small segment of the population. When you actually were building Wealthify, did you have a kind of target customer in mind, or was there a specific kind of person that you really wanted to serve, that you really wanted to give that accessibility to, or was it more broad than that?
Was broad and it wasn't. I think the short answer is it was someone like me, and I always felt like that made me always really connected to the product and really passionate. It was I could kind of very clearly visualize the subsectors of who we were targeting. It was me. It was a kind of young professional who had a bit of savings but just didn't know too much about finance and where to get started. And I had many friends who invested early in Wealthify, and they were in the same boat as me. And to this day, most of them still use Wealthify because it fulfilled that need that was completely unmet. So I could see it very clearly through that eyes. But I did recognize as well that beyond that, there was a vast target audience who it could serve on multiple levels. For example, one of the things I spoke about earlier was the kind of fees in the existing industry, which get a lot of press, bad press, clearly. And I could also see through the eyes of, people who were investing with the firms who had more wealth, that actually why wouldn't they invest with a digital online service? They could have a great customer experience. They could have a better digital experience if they were, more of a digital native, and they could be paying half a quarter of what they're paying today and getting investment returns that matched or exceeded what they were getting already. So I think that was always it for me, was Wealthify could work for so many people. It gave me a lot of confidence to start the business, I think, because it just felt like a no-brainer. I kept looking at it and just thinking, I just can't understand why it wouldn't work. When you're trying to talk yourself out of an idea, and I just couldn't this one. I couldn't find a good reason that it wouldn't exist and be a success.
And I mean, ultimately, you've kind of proved yourself right. But I guess 8 years ago, when you founded the company, there were nowhere near as many robo-advisors, platforms doing what Wealthify does as there are today. Why do you think it took so long for so many companies to join in and to, I guess, get on board with what you clearly could see from a young age?
I think a lot of it was just watching and waiting. I think there's also just this thing in financial services that it's just because the model works today, it earns a lot of money, it's just comfortable for most people to just sit as they are. And the kind of regulatory framework as well creates a barrier to entry for sort of new firms and you to innovate on your model as well. And I think that probably put off maybe some of the more like entrepreneurial tech-minded people, because they had to face the FCA and the respective regulator in the country they were in. So I think, that was probably a factor as well.
Investing is just one way that you could take care of your future finances by giving your money more potential to grow.
With Wealthify, you can start investing with as little or as much as you'd like.
And luckily for you, Wealthify is offering all Money Unfiltered listeners the chance to get an extra £50 boost to your investment pot.
You can pick a risk level that's right for you and know how much you're paying for your investments to be looked after by their team of experts, thanks to their clear and affordable fees.
So if you've been thinking about starting to invest and you've been putting it off, then now could be the perfect time to make the leap.
So what do you need to do? Simply open a Wealthify plan and invest £50. Then, after 12 months of the money being invested, Wealthify will add another £50 to your plan. How great is that? Now for the legal bit. T's and C's obviously apply, and this offer is open to new Wealthify customers only.
It will only be available to the first 500 qualifying customers. And you'll also need to claim the offer via the dedicated landing page and pay £50 into your plan by the 31st of December 2022.
Head to the show notes for the link to claim this offer and read the full T's and C's, or head to wealthify.com/Money Unfiltered.
And remember, with all investing, your capital is at risk and you could get back less money than you put in. Wealthify is also authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.
There is still a huge gap between the men and the women investing. What is going on? Why do you think we still have such a huge wealth gap?
I think it's a number of reasons. So we've done some research on this, and it's very broad brush research, and sometimes when you speak about females, I kind of hate categorizing everyone into one pool as you're a woman or a man. But if you look at the kind of overall dynamic of it, women are more risk averse, and they do need to be taken on a journey a lot more before they'll actually part with their money. Like, they need to understand it typically, and they need that confidence, whereas men will kind of dive in at the deep end and just kind of assume that everything will be okay. That's just kind of, they've got a much stronger risk-taking sort of attitude towards it. So I think some of it is around that, and the way that the industry doesn't take you on that journey at the moment very well. It's all very, as I said earlier, like smoke and mirrors, a lot of jargon news, and I think that can be quite scary and off-putting to some people. I also think that some of it's around education and the way that women and men are spoken to differently in the media, and kind of have been throughout our lives. And one of the challenger banks, Starling Bank, they did a campaign quite a few years ago now, but it really stuck in my mind quite memorably, because they did a lot of research around how does the media speak to different people. And when they looked at it, it was women are very much more spoken to in terms of saving, budgeting, and that being your route to financial success, whereas men, it's much more about earning and earning potential and investing and growing your money. So probably some of that as well does impact. We've started a journey to get more female investors. We're not there yet. It's not 50-50 at Wealthify, and I would love it to be. I think some products that just speak to the sort of female audience better. So for example, we launched ethical investment products a couple of years ago, and that's had quite a strong uptake amongst females. And I think some of the reason for that is, as well as it being ethical, it speaks to them, it speaks to us all in kind of a more human language, rather than speaking the language of financial services, which is what the other products kind of do. But we've definitely got further to go on that as an industry and as a company, and we've got some ideas that we're working on. So
yeah, well, honestly, I cannot wait, because I I'm in the industry as well, and I think there's a lot more work to do to get women to the level of confidence. I don't know if you see this, but I have a bit of a theory. I'm aware that women tend to be better investors. I don't like to be so broad, but women tend to be better investors. They're more risk averse. They take their time to really consider what they're doing. But what I do see is that men, I think, boys, when they're young, when they're teenagers, kind of 18, 19, they've got some money, they're happy to just throw something onto a stock and give it a go. And yeah, they might lose some money and make some mistakes, but they make the mistakes quickly and then they learn. Whereas I find women take a lot longer to get started, and once they get started they do really well. But I think there's a huge amount of work to do in terms of getting women to just get started in a in a sensible way. So I'm very excited to see what you guys do. And I think you're right. I think a lot is about the language we're using and the products, and just having things that are tailored to everyone.
No, absolutely. I think get started is the key message there. And I think, for men and women alike, actually, like that's one of the key barriers, I think, is you can kind of overcomplicate it and overlook at something sometimes. And the world of investments, I think that is just start with just a tiny bit of money, just put something and just start learning, just start educating yourself, because it's really hard otherwise to kind of learn about it just from reading kind of reams and reams of internet pages or books or whatever takes your fancy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you are a female in a typically very male dominated industry. Financial services as a whole is very male dominated. Have you found that has come with challenges, or have you actually found that it's helped to be a ambitious, kind of clear vision female in an industry which is typically very much, male centered?
I think the latter, actually. I think it's helped. I think it's particularly around seeking some funding for the business. It kind of helped having a diverse team, having that message, not being just another sort of middle-aged white guy coming along, as you typically do find in financial services. Like, it helped me stand out. And I didn't ever find it that much of a problem. I think that the thing that I struggled with more perhaps was my age, because I was very young when I started, and I think I was met with some skepticism from some people on that front, and that was really frustrating at the time, because I could just obviously no one would ever say it, but you could just kind of sense that they were looking at someone else rather than you, because you were younger, so they were assuming that you were the more junior one. So yeah, that annoyed me. But the female thing, not so much. And I think also because Wealthify is a fintech firm, and we're tech as much or probably more than we are financial services, actually in that world there's a lot more women anyway, so I was kind of mixing in those circles more than financial services a lot of the time.
I'd love to unpack that age piece, because I mean, Ellie and I both started our businesses in our 20s, and we're seeing it more and more, but I think it's still, there's a real sense, I certainly felt it myself, being like a 20-something financial advisor. There's a lot of stigma, there's a lot of backlash around, you're young enough to be my granddaughter, and it does feel really difficult as a young person, or that's been my experience anyway. But would you encourage people today? Because I think I've seen amongst my friends anyway, there seems to be kind of it seems that people take one of two paths. They either kind of go for at least a decade getting experience, or a decade or longer getting experience until they're at an age, or they kind of have enough, or the boys have enough facial hair that they feel like they can be in the boardroom, whereas I think others just kind of go for it, and it's hard and it's challenging. Would you encourage young people to step outside of that comfort zone and take those leaps, even if they are going to be faced with a bit of backlash around their age? Or do you think, with hindsight, maybe having done Wealthify a bit later, after having had, I don't know, more experience in the workplace, might have served you better?
I know, 100% I'm happy I did it when I was young.
Yeah.
And I just think, just believe in yourself. Like, if you think you can do it, go for it, and just work extra hard to prove those people who say and think otherwise wrong, and just focus on yourself and try and like drown out the noise. That's kind of been always my philosophy on it and on life. If someone's acting doubtful of me, or kind of treating me differently, or not giving me the respect that I kind of felt that I deserved at the time, I kind of understood it, I think, in some scenarios in their eyes. So I always just made sure that I worked super hard and stayed nice to them as well, and kind of just wanted to prove them wrong and show them that actually, do you know what? I can do this. I can make it a success, and you're going to change your mind about me.
What one question I have to ask is, what we all know, anyone knows that starting any business is a challenge. It's tough. The first few years, it's tough. And I have a tiny business, so I cannot imagine what your journey has been like building Wealthify, especially in the earlier years. What has motivated you through the hard times to keep going? What's really been like the key focus and the key mission that's been so important throughout this journey for you?
I think I just always thought back to that early feeling that I had when I was working in the kind of traditional world and just how bad some of it was. And I just remember just sometimes thinking like, okay, times are tough, but just really like rooting myself back to that early vision and that early gut feeling. I wrote myself some like notes early on as well, which I've still got today, around kind of like the company and the aim and the mission. And I would occasionally get those out as well, just to sort of bring myself back, really kind of ground me in why the idea was still so good and why it would succeed. And just that feeling of inevitability that this was going to happen, like this was going to happen to the industry, and just making sure that I was one of the success stories and kind of part of it, rather than just being stuck. And I probably also a bit the desire to, like, you know, when you've started a business, you don't want to fail, and you don't want people to see you fail, and you don't want to fail for yourself, and you don't want to go backwards. And I guess that always is a big driver, or was for me anyway.
Yeah, completely. And I mean, you talked there about being one of those success stories. And in 2020, then Wealthify was acquired by financial services giant Aviva. But I always wonder with founders, what was it that you knew? What made you know that it was the right time? And was it a hard decision to decide to, I guess, trust someone else to a degree with what you've built?
Yeah, so it was kind of, it wasn't a hugely difficult decision, because Aviva had invested in the company 2 years prior. They'd bought a majority stake in Wealthify, so we kind of had experience of what Aviva were like and what working with their team would be like. And the way that the agreement was set up at the time, there was always, it wasn't inevitable that this would happen, but it was a strong possibility that it could end up as an acquisition. So we knew the time was right, because the company needed Aviva's distribution, the capital, and it had got to a state where it just needed that next push up and leg up, and it felt like that was the right thing to do at the time. It was difficult, yeah, definitely was, because Wealthify has always felt like my baby, like my very first baby. And so much of me invested into that, like, yeah, personally, financially, mentally, like physically, even like everything I gave to Wealthify for that first kind of 4 years of its life. But I think because I've stayed with the company now, and I've kind of moved with it to seeing the scale up phase, that wasn't so difficult. And yeah, I've still kind of retained an important role within the company, and watching it grow and succeed. So it's nice. It's sad in some ways, but then it's nice to be able to actually now be in a company that's, you know, yeah, got 100 people employed in it, and it's going from strength to strength.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can't imagine what that must have been like for you, but I think ultimately, because you've had that core mission that you've kept coming back to, ultimately, if the decision serves the mission and gets more people, you know, giving more people access to Wealthify, then, you know, it kind of, I would think that makes the decision a bit easier for you.
Yeah.
But one thing I'd like to touch on, which is a little bit of a separate note, is that you have just come back from, or you're just about to come back from maternity leave. And one thing that I see a lot is I think women don't realize that there are certain financial considerations to really that are really important to take into account before having a child, before going on maternity leave. And with your kind of industry knowledge and experience, I'd love to know what's been kind of important for you and the key considerations that you'd encourage other women going on maternity leave to consider to give themselves and their families, you know, a strong financial future.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, this is my second maternity leave actually in the space of a couple of years. So probably even more important for me this time around to think about that stuff. So I think planning in the first instance and really kind of doing that forward thinking piece, how long do you want to be off? and being realistic about that as well. Like that's something that I see a lot of women doing, as they think, oh, well, I'll be back at work in, 4, 5, 6 months, whatever it is. But then when it actually gets there, it can be quite gut-wrenching to actually have to return to work. So yeah, maybe over plan for how long you want to be away from work for. Then budgeting as well. There's some really great budgeting tools that exist today. So I'd really encourage people to kind of go and make use of those and have a plan. Even if you don't end up following the plan or it falls through, at least have a plan in mind. So you've got an aim of where you want to get to. And then, when you're actually on maternity leave, don't buy all the stuff, like all the stuff that you think you need, get the bare minimum, and then just work it out as you go along, because there's so much that you can just beg or borrow from friends, from Facebook Marketplace, something like that. And I think you can save a whole bunch of money as well doing that. Charity shops as well. And that's a great activity for a baby or a very young kid as well. They find that very entertaining. But I think, just being realistic about it. Look at childcare costs as well. So think about after you return to work. They're high in this country, as people might know, but make sure that you kind of put your eyes as wide open as possible, face up to it. Don't just, I think some people, when they're particularly like stressed about a financial decision, they can tend to just bury their head in the sand with it. And if you're one of those people listening, this is your signal to go and do your research now, and just make sure that you've kind of spent even half an hour just going through it, thinking through what you can afford, talking to your partner frankly about it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that last point as well, talking about it early on with your partner, having a plan together, is so important. But in terms of actually, the future of Wealthify, and you mentioned that, you're aiming to push that percentage of women particularly up. Can you let us know any plans that you've got? What is in store? What can we expect to see that's coming down the line?
Some more exciting products, which I probably can't talk about at the moment. But kind of, I guess, broadening out what we do from just investments. We're kind of looking at some innovation around the investment products as well, and just kind of addressing like how we can relate to, talk to, and educate our customers better as a whole. Because we're conscious that there is, this big educational gap, and we think we go some way to doing that today, but the whole industry needs to shift materially, I think, to be able to kind of give people that confidence to get started. So we're constantly sort of looking for ways that we can do that communication piece better with customers as well, and improve on that.
Honestly, I couldn't agree more, and it's so inspiring. It's just so great to hear, because I am also in the industry and so painfully aware of the huge changes that need to happen. And some days it can just feel so overwhelming and impossible, but other days, I'm around people like you, and there are so many people in the industry who are really pushing for change and pushing things forward, and I think that needs to be the case. And I know you mentioned, there are absolutely loads of tools online. There is Wealthify, so people can get access and information that they need. But I think the problem today that a lot of people feel is that they Google one thing and, there's 10,000 search results, and people feel so drowned in information. How do you think we can kind of combat that and just help people get over that first barrier, just to stop them burying their head in the sand and just make one small move?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just information overload in every kind of
difficult
corner of life at the moment. I find myself sometimes just buying something so basic on Amazon, for example, and you're just reading reviews and you're like, why am I doing this? This is like a tiny purchase. So trying to make a bigger financial decision for yourself, I can only imagine is difficult. I'd say how to do it: find a site that you trust. There's a couple of them where they kind of review all the kind of whole of market investment propositions, and then just pick one. Don't over stress over it. Don't over complicate it. Don't overthink it, is what I'm trying to say. make sure that the fees are reasonable.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Make sure that the fees are reasonable, make sure it's got good reviews, always do a quick search that it's credible, and look for their Trustpilot score or something like that. And if it is, just get going with it. Just start a little bit of money, see if you can pick up an offer on your way in as well. Like a lot of companies will do deals on their way in to encourage you to start, and then just try it. You can always change providers. One of the great things these days is it is relatively easy to sort of switch between companies if you make a decision later down the line. But yeah, don't worry about it too much.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. It has been so great to talk to you and to hear your story and how we've got to where we are today. And we are very excited to see what is in store for Wealthify. We'll be keeping a close eye over the next few months and into the next year.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me on the show today.
Oh, thank you. Woohoo, we did it.
Yay.